My name is Martha Ellington, I'm 69 years old, and there are sounds you forget, and sounds you never do. The one I can't forget is this. My daughter-in-law's cold, metallic laugh echoing across a marble lobby like a bullet ricocheting off stone. It was the sound that split my life into before and after. It happened on a Tuesday morning, one of those pale Oregon mornings when the air smells like rain even if it hasn't fallen yet. I had walked to Redwood National Bank, the one on Hawthorne Street, for one simple reason. I needed $100 for my heart medication. That was it. Not a loan, not a favor, not a handout, just a withdrawal from my own account. I remember standing in line, clutching my small leather purse against my chest, my fingers tracing the worn stitching. My arrhythmia had been acting up that week, nothing dangerous, but uncomfortable enough that I knew I needed the refill. I took a number and waited, quietly, the way older women learn to wait for everything, politely, invisibly, trying not to be in anyone's way. I had almost reached the counter when I heard heels clicking fast across the floor. Sharp, confident, familiar. I didn't turn. I didn't have to. A second later, her perfume reached me, something expensive, sharp, the kind that enters a room 5 seconds before the person does. Then, oh my God, Mom? Madison's voice cut through the lobby. People turned. I froze. She walked right up to me, her suit immaculate, her hair pulled into a perfect high twist, the kind of confidence only someone raised to feel untouchable could carry. She looked down at the slip in my hand. My ticket number. And then she laughed. Not kindly, not nervously, not privately. She laughed for the audience. Careful, everyone, she said loudly, sweeping her eyes across the lobby. We have a charity case today. The room went quiet. A few people shifted uncomfortably. The teller, a young woman with freckles, stiffened behind the counter. My breath hitched. My card trembled between my fingers. Madison, I whispered, please don't do this. Not here. She tilted her head, smiling like a woman posing for a magazine cover. Oh, don't be dramatic. You needed $100, right? For what is it? Your pills? A woman behind me gasped softly. Blood rushed to my cheeks. Madison kept going, her voice dripping with fake pity. Honestly, Mom, you should learn to budget. Daniel and I can't spot you forever. People are starting to talk. Spot me? $100. For my heart medication. I felt something inside me fold in on itself. I wasn't asking you, I said quietly. This is my own account. She blinked, then let out a theatrical sigh. Well, maybe you shouldn't depend on us so much. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. Not her behavior. Me. I stepped back from the counter, clutching my purse, trying to breathe around the shame squeezing my throat. Madison, the teller said softly, maybe we should. But Madison raised a hand. Don't worry, I've got this. She turned back to me. You should leave, Mom. I'll transfer the money later. This line is for paying customers. Something in the way she said, customers, made the floor tilt beneath me. I backed away as quietly as I could, keeping my eyes on the floor tiles so no one would see the tears gathering there. I left the bank without withdrawing a single cent. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I stood under the awning, hands shaking, trying to swallow the humiliation gathering in my chest like a storm cloud. Welcome to Life Voices, where family drama turns into late-life justice. If you're watching, tell us your city in the comments, we always read them. People walked past me, busy, purposeful, alive. I felt like a ghost hovering between them. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Mom, Madison says you caused a scene? What happened? A scene. She had humiliated me in front of an entire lobby, and I had caused a scene. My hands trembled again. I didn't answer. I began walking back toward their townhouse, my steps slow, my heart tight. I kept my eyes on the pavement as if that would make me smaller, invisible, less of an inconvenience to the world. But as I walked, something else began to rise in me, something quiet, something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not yet. Just a strange, cold clarity. It was the first crack in the foundation I had been standing on for years without realizing it was crumbling beneath me. I didn't know then that 7 days later, Madison's entire financial world would begin to shatter. I didn't know that the same name she mocked in that marble lobby would be the one printed at the top of the document that pulled the plug on everything she thought she controlled. I didn't know that I still had power. Influence. A legacy. All I knew that morning was the sound of her laugh, metallic, rehearsed, merciless, and the way people stared at me as if I were something fragile and slightly pathetic. But humiliation is a strange thing. Sometimes it crushes you. Sometimes it awakens you. That morning, it did both. And in ways none of us could have predicted. Justice was already moving toward her, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Not because I planned it, but because truth has a way of finding the people who try hardest to bury it. And Madison had been burying it for years. I wasn't always the woman standing in a marble bank lobby, trying not to disappear. Before that morning, before Madison's laugh carved a mark across my dignity, my life had been shrinking quietly, inch by inch, inside my son's townhouse on the east side of Portland. It didn't happen suddenly. Most losses don't. They dissolve slowly, like a photograph left too long in sunlight. After my husband, Raymond *, passed away 4 years ago, the house we shared for nearly 40 years became unbearable. Too quiet. Too filled with echoes. I kept catching myself turning to tell him something, then remembering the silence. Daniel and his wife, Madison, had insisted I move in. "It's just temporary, Mom," Daniel had said, placing his hand on mine in that gentle way he used to when he was small. "A few months. Until you feel steady," Madison added with her bright, polished smile, "it'll be good for all of us. Like family is supposed to be." I believed them. I wanted to believe them. I packed light. 3 sweaters, Raymond's reading glasses, my medical box, and the ceramic bird my granddaughter made me in 3rd grade. But when I arrived, something in the air felt off. Not cruel, just cold. A quiet cold. The very first morning, Madison stood in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone. "Oh, Martha," she said brightly, "since you're up, could you scramble some eggs?" "I'm already late." I froze, spatula midway in the drawer. "Sure," I said. Of course. It seemed harmless. Small. Convenient. But small things pile up the fastest. Days turned into weeks, and the requests grew. "Mom, the baby naps better when you rock him." "Mom, could you clean up the living room? We have guests." "Mom, did you eat already?" "Okay, just keep dinner warm, we'll be home late." "Mom, I left laundry on the bed, can you fold it?" Every "mom" meant another task, another hour, another inch of myself evaporating. Daniel didn't notice. Or maybe he noticed but didn't want to see. He worked long nights, came home exhausted, kissed Madison's cheek, kissed the baby's forehead, and collapsed onto the couch. And I would bring him tea. Because that's what mothers do. Even when no one sees them anymore. My room was a converted storage space. A narrow rectangle with a thin window and a lamp that flickered when the house heater turned on. Madison opened the door the first night and said, "It's cozy, right?" Minimalist. Very Portland. She was so proud of that word, minimalist, yet the only thing minimalist was the space allotted for me. Still, I nodded. Because what else could I do? The worst night before the bank incident happened 2 months earlier. Madison was hosting a small dinner gathering, which meant 12 adults, coordinated outfits, and a dining table that could shame a wedding planner. I spent all afternoon helping. Chopping, stirring, setting napkins, refilling drinks, rocking the baby so Madison could focus on ambiance. When the guests arrived, Madison leaned toward me and whispered, "Mom, maybe sit in the living room? We're tight on chairs." But she gently pushed me toward the hallway. "It's for the vibe. You understand." I ate alone in the kitchen with the baby monitor on the counter. While from the dining room came bursts of laughter and clinking glasses. I washed the dishes before dessert. That night, lying in my narrow bed, I realized something. I was no longer part of their family gatherings. I was the staff. And the worst part? I had let it happen. She wasn't always rude. Sometimes she was pleasant. But even then, her pleasantness felt like a loan I had to repay. Once, while I folded laundry, she leaned against the doorframe. "You know, Martha," she said casually, "aging is hard on everyone. Especially financially. You're lucky Daniel and I are so accommodating." Accommodating. As though my life, my decades of work, my savings, my home, were a burden she was gracefully shouldering. She tapped a folded shirt. "I just think older women should learn not to depend on family so much." "It's uncomfortable." I swallowed my words. I had a pension. I had savings. But grief fogged my mind. I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't keep track of things the way I used to. She made me feel like I needed her. And that was exactly the point. 3 weeks before the bank incident, my arrhythmia started acting up. One evening while chopping vegetables, I felt a flutter, like a small trapped bird beating its wings in my chest. I steadied myself on the counter. "Madison," I said quietly, "I think I need to refill my medication. Could you take me tomorrow?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "Just go to my bank and withdraw what you need. I can't keep spotting you. We're swamped." Spotting me. Again. $100 felt like asking for a diamond ring. She sighed loudly, pulling her hair into a sleek ponytail. "Martha, honestly, you need to learn independence. Even seniors should take responsibility." Seniors. As if the word itself explained everything wrong with me. I smiled weakly. "Okay, Madison. I'll go." She waved a hand. "Use the redwood on Hawthorne. I work there. They'll help you." They did not. Daniel's blindness. Daniel wasn't cruel. He was overwhelmed. "Mom," he would say, rubbing his temples, "Madison handles most of the finances. She's better at it. Just trust her." But, "Mom, please. I can't do everything." So I swallowed my discomfort. And I trusted Madison, even when she slowly erased pieces of me. Every night, when the house was quiet and the baby asleep, I would sit on the edge of my little bed and think. When did I become a shadow in my own family? I had once been a nurse who held dying hands, who calmed emergencies, who saved lives. I had been a wife adored by her husband. A mother who worked 2 jobs to give Daniel a better future. And now? Now I tiptoed through hallways to avoid being an inconvenience. I thought the shame in that bank lobby was rock bottom. I was wrong. Rock bottom came 7 days after the incident. But so did something else. Not rage, not revenge, awakening, foreshadowing the break. The night before everything changed, I stood in the kitchen washing a single plate. One plate. My dinner had been soup from a can. From the living room I overheard Madison laughing loudly with a friend. "Honestly, I don't know how much longer we can financially support Martha. She's so helpless." Helpless. I dried the plate slowly. That word lodged somewhere deep inside my chest, sharp, unyielding. And then, strangely, I felt a flicker of something warm. Almost like the spark of a pilot light turning back on after years of dormancy. I was not helpless. I just forgot who I was. Who I had been. Who I still could be. The world was about to remind me. And Madison? She would learn that the woman she mocked in public was not as powerless as she looked. Not even close. 7 days after the bank humiliation, I walked into the townhouse carrying a small paper bag with my prescription inside. My heart medication, finally refilled thanks to the $50 I had quietly borrowed from a neighbor back in my old neighborhood. I hadn't told Daniel or Madison. I couldn't bear another lecture. When I stepped inside, voices drifted from the living room. Laughter. I recognized Madison's first, sharp as a broken icicle. "And you should have seen her face," she was saying. She looked like someone slapped her with a wet newspaper. A group of her friends chuckled. My stomach tightened. She continued, raising her voice for dramatic effect. I swear, she actually flinched. Like a little bird. It was so, "Oh my God, I can't." More laughter. I froze in the hallway. I wasn't supposed to hear this. But I did. Every word. One of Madison's friends asked. "Why was she even at your bank?" Madison let out a long, theatrical sigh. "Well, you know Martha. Everything's a crisis. She wanted $100. For her heart thing. I can't remember what she called it." "She still doesn't manage her own money?" another asked. Madison smirked. "Honey, she barely manages herself. She's sweet, but she's old. And honestly, I don't have the bandwidth to babysit an elderly woman. Daniel's too soft on her." A quiet beat. Then the worst part. "If I ever end up like her, someone better put me out of my misery." The group erupted into laughter. Something in my chest cracked, not my heart this time. Something deeper. Something that had been bending for years finally snapped into place. I stepped forward without thinking. "Madison." The room fell silent. She whipped around, startled. My grocery bag crinkled in my hand. "Oh," she said, forcing a laugh, "we were just talking." "I heard you," I said quietly. Her friends exchanged glances. Some looked guilty. Others looked amused. Madison straightened her blazer. She never liked being confronted. Well, Martha, she said, voice sugary, maybe you misunderstood. No, I said, I didn't. A strange calmness washed over me. A steadiness I hadn't felt in years. Daniel, she suddenly called. Could you please come here? Your mother is. I'm not doing this, I silenced her. Not anymore. Daniel appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. What's going on? He asked. Madison spoke fast. Your mom is being dramatic again. She's accusing me of. I heard everything, I told him. My voice didn't shake. Daniel stared at me, confused, caught between two worlds. Mom, I'm sure Madison didn't mean. I'm leaving, I said. Madison blinked. Daniel froze. What? He whispered. Where? I don't know yet, I said simply. But not here. I walked to the small closet that held my few belongings. Madison followed me like a shadow. Martha, don't be ridiculous, she said, her voice too fast, too sharp. You wouldn't last a day out there. You need us. Where will you even go? I turned and met her eyes, really met them, for the first time in years. I'll manage, I said. And the shock on her face told me she hadn't expected that. Not from me. My room looked suddenly unfamiliar, like a place I was already gone from. I opened the drawer and pulled out the small duffel bag I had packed weeks earlier. A few clothes, my nursing journals, the ceramic bird, a photo of me and Raymond on our 25th anniversary, his old watch. I placed them inside one by one, my hands steady. Madison hovered at the doorway. This is insane, she said. Just apologize, Martha. You always make things harder than they need to be. I zipped the bag. No, I said softly. I make things easier. For everyone except myself. That shut her up. Daniel came into the room, panic in his eyes. Mom, please don't go. This is your home. No, I said gently. It never was. He swallowed hard. Is it because of the bank? Because of what, Madison? Yes, I said, and everything before it. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know you felt this way. You didn't want to know. His shoulders sagged. Mom, I'm sorry. I touched his arm. I know you are, but sorry isn't enough if nothing changes. For a long moment, he just stood there, breathing shallowly. Where will you go? He whispered. I hesitated. The truth was, I didn't know. But something inside me answered anyway. Forward, I said. I walked down the hallway toward the front door. Madison crossed her arms. You'll be back, she said smugly. Everyone comes back when reality hits. I paused, hand on the doorknob. Reality has already hit, I said. Just not for me. And I stepped outside. The air felt cold, free, sharp enough to wake the parts of me that had been sleeping for too long. The door clicked behind me. For the first time in years, I heard silence that wasn't empty. It was full, full of possibility, full of fear, full of something I had forgotten. Myself. I walked to the end of the block, then another, until the townhouse was out of sight. The sun dipped below the buildings. The streetlights hummed on. I found a small motel off the highway. The kind with faded curtains and a vending machine that ate your dollar before giving you a soda. The receptionist, a young man with tattoos and tired eyes, looked at me with a mix of boredom and pity. Just one night? He asked. Just one, I said. I wasn't sure if it was true. The room smelled faintly of bleach and stale air. I sat on the bed. My heart ached, not from arrhythmia this time, but from everything I had held inside for years. I opened my duffel bag slowly, touching each item like it was a relic from a life I had half forgotten. Raymond's watch, the ceramic bird, my journals, and then, something else, a key, a small, silver key with a worn blue tag that read, P.O. Box 184, Beaverton. My old post office box. The one I hadn't checked in months. A thought whispered through my mind. Maybe it's time. I placed the key on the nightstand, next to the lamp with its flickering bulb. Outside, cars hummed by on the highway. Life moving, indifferent, unstoppable. I lay down fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would go to Beaverton. Tomorrow, something would shift. But I didn't know how much. Or how deeply. Or how completely the world I thought I had lost was waiting to return to me. I woke up in the motel before sunrise. The room was dim, the heater rattling softly, the thin curtains glowing with early morning blue. I stared at the small silver key on the nightstand. P.O. Box 184, Beaverton. I didn't know why, but something inside me insisted. Go. So I packed my things, locked the motel door behind me, and took the first bus headed toward my old neighborhood. The ride was quiet. People half asleep, heads leaning against windows, the smell of old upholstery and morning coffee in the air. I clutched the key tightly. Beaverton looked almost the same as always, familiar houses, the bakery I used to visit, the old bus stop bench. The post office sat on the corner like a red brick memory. I walked in. The clerk didn't look up as I headed to the row of metal boxes. My box was low, near the floor. I slid the key in. It turned easily, too easily for something I hadn't touched in months. Inside was a thick envelope with my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Lydia Harper. My breath caught. Lydia, my friend, my sister in spirit. The woman I co-founded the Aurora Community Initiative with decades ago when we were both exhausted nurses trying to patch holes in a broken system. I sat on the plastic bench outside and opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Inside was a letter and documents. Stacks of them. Financial records, board decisions, legal summaries, notifications, and then a single line highlighted in yellow. Ellington, Martha, 51% controlling share. My heart stuttered. No, that couldn't be right. I flipped through the pages, each one confirming the same truth. The small, grassroots health initiative Lydia and I started had grown into something enormous, one of the largest senior outreach programs in the county. And because I never sold or transferred my portion, I still held majority ownership. 51%. I blinked. Read it again. And again. Then I opened Lydia's letter. Her handwriting wavered a bit now, age had softened it, but her voice echoed in every sentence. Martha, I don't know where you've been these past months, but Aurora needs you again. The board voted to reinstate you as chair of the Ethics Council. Please come home to the work you built. I swallowed hard. Then came the last line. You always told me dignity is saved in silence, not noise. Now I think it's time for your silence to end. My vision blurred. I hadn't felt important in so long, I'd forgotten what it looked like. At the bottom of the pile was a sealed, thin envelope marked Confidential, Redwood National Bank. My pulse spiked. I opened it carefully. Inside was a compliance report. Aurora's internal audit team had flagged financial irregularities at several partnering institutions. One name appeared repeatedly. Redwood National Bank. My breath caught in my throat. Attached was a transcription from a whistleblower complaint. A woman's voice, steady but strained. Our branch manager, Madison Ellington, has instructed staff to avoid approving loans or services for elderly women. She said they don't bring returns and are not worth the risk. My hands went cold. Madison, her voice, her words, printed on paper, documented, filed. This wasn't a personal insult. This was discrimination. Illegal, cruel, institutional. And Aurora had the power, my power, to act. I sat there on the bench as cars passed, as people walked by, as the world moved around me, oblivious to the earthquake happening in my chest. The humiliation in the lobby. The laughter in the living room. The years of invisibility. None of it was isolated. It was all part of a pattern. And suddenly, for the first time in a long time, I felt something surge inside me. Strength. Not loud, not angry, just undeniable. Madison thought she knew who I was, a fragile woman, dependent, helpless. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I stood, smoothed the envelope, and breathed in the cold morning air. Then I whispered softly to myself. Enough. I took the document straight to Aurora's downtown office. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw my ID. Ms. Ellington, right away, he said. Within minutes, I was escorted into a conference room where the board, older, wiser, kinder, waited for me. Lydia rose first. Martha, she whispered. We embraced, and for the first time in months, I felt grounded. Then she placed a single form in front of me. Your reinstatement, she said. Everyone voted yes. I picked up the pen. And signed. A quiet signature. A quiet return to myself. In the next folder was a decision Aurora had postponed, redirecting their annual investment partnership. Right now, that partnership kept *Redwood National financially stable. But the compliance violations, the discrimination, the unethical behavior, and Madison, at the center of it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. I simply opened the file. Read the final paragraph. And signed. One stroke of ink. One quiet decision. And Redwood National's fate began to unravel. Not because I wanted revenge, but because justice demands accountability. As I left the building, Lydia walked me to the elevator. "Are you all right?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "I'm awake," I said. For the first time in a long time. She squeezed my hand. "Good. Because this is only the beginning." The elevator doors closed. And I knew she was right. Madison had started a war she didn't even realize she was in. But this wasn't revenge. This was restoration. For me. For every woman she dismissed. For everyone she made small. And justice? Justice was already on its way. Quietly. Steadily. Unstoppable. Redwood National didn't collapse all at once. That's not how institutions fall. They crack slowly, quietly, until suddenly everyone hears the sound. It started the very next morning. I was sitting on a bench outside a small cafe, sipping coffee from a paper cup, when my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Mom, something's happening at Madison's branch. Do you know anything about this?" I didn't reply. Not yet. Across the street, cars passed, people walked their dogs, school buses wheezed. Everything looked normal. But Redwood wasn't normal anymore. Aurora's funding had been pulled at dawn. Compliance alerts had gone straight to state regulators. Every flagged document was forwarded to oversight. The machine had started, and Madison had no idea she was standing right in its path. Around noon, my phone buzzed again, this time several times in a row. "Daniel. Mom, the auditors just showed up. Employees are being questioned. Madison's meeting with corporate." I took a slow sip of coffee. People don't expect consequences when they think they're untouchable. Especially people like Madison. At 3:17 p.m., a local news alert flashed across my screen. Redwood National Bank under investigation for senior discrimination practices. Branch manager suspended pending review. State regulators respond to whistleblower complaint. My heart thumped. There it was. Not my doing. Just the truth, finally having a voice. My phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring once. Twice. 3 times. Then I answered. He didn't even say hello. "Mom, did you know this was going to happen?" I closed my eyes for a moment. "No," I said quietly. "But I knew something needed to change." He exhaled shakily. "They're saying Madison, that she discriminated against elderly clients. That there's a recording." Silence stretched between us. "She told staff not to approve services for older women," I said calmly. "It wasn't just me." Daniel swallowed audibly. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear, Mom, I didn't know." "I believe you," I said. And I did. But that didn't erase what he let happen in our home. That evening, I walked by the Redwood branch. Not inside, just by. The glass doors were locked. Posters were being torn down. 2 employees were packing files into boxes. A security guard stood by the entrance. And there, through the window, I saw her. Madison, sitting alone at her desk. Head in her hands. Her blazer off, her hair falling loose, mascara smudged. For the first time since I'd known her, she didn't look polished. She didn't look powerful. She looked human, lost, afraid, very small in a room built to make her feel big. For a moment, I stood there, unmoving, watching the woman who had made me invisible finally see herself. Then I turned and walked away. Justice isn't watching someone crumble. Justice is refusing to be the one who holds them up. 2 days later, Redwood National's official statement was released. All operations at the Hawthorne branch are suspended indefinitely. Management under review. Internal leadership violations confirmed. It spread through the town like wildfire. Neighbors whispered. Clients transferred their accounts. Corporate distanced themselves. Investigators did interviews. Madison's career, her identity, her pride, all of it cracked like thin glass under too much pressure. Daniel came to see me at Aurora's new center. He looked 10 years older. "Mom," he said, "everything's falling apart. They're saying she could lose her license. She's devastated." I studied his face. "And how do you feel?" I asked softly. He sank into a chair. "Confused," he said. "Angry. Guilty. I don't know." He rubbed his eyes. "She wants to apologize to you," he added. "No," I said. "She wants relief from consequences." That stunned him. But it was true. He sat in silence. "Mom, are you doing okay?" And for the first time in years, I answered honestly. Yes, I said, I am. He nodded slowly. I'm glad, he whispered. I didn't realize how unhappy you were. I touched his hand gently. That's why you didn't see it. Aurora purchased the empty redwood branch within a week. The same lobby where I had been humiliated, where Madison's voice had echoed like a weapon, became our new space. The teller counters turned into intake desks. The manager's office became a counseling room. The cold bank vault became a reading lounge lined with warm lamps. We named it the Ellington Harper Senior Empowerment Center. People clapped when the sign was hung. I stood next to Lydia, breath catching in my throat. I never imagined my life would lead me here. Not through revenge, not through anger, but through reclamation. A week after the opening, I heard the center's door open behind me. Soft steps, a quiet hesitation, then a voice I knew well. Martha? I turned. Madison stood there, not in a suit, no heels, just jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Her eyes red from crying. I don't want anything, she said quickly. She swallowed hard. I want to take the financial resilience class. If you'll allow it. Allow. What a powerful, fragile word. I gestured toward the back room. Class starts at 6. She nodded gratefully and slipped inside. No apology, no excuses, just humility. And sometimes that's enough. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. My life didn't just get better. It expanded. Women from all over the city came through the doors of the new center, some scared, some angry, some quiet like I once was. I listened to them, I taught them, and piece by piece, I found myself again. Not the version Madison mocked. Not the version I tried to shrink into. The real one. One evening, after the last class ended, I stood alone in the lobby, the same lobby where I once shook with humiliation. Now it was warm, bright, alive. The door opened. Daniel stepped inside, holding a small envelope. Mom, this is the letter Madison wrote for you, he said. She wasn't sure if she should give it to you directly. I opened it. Just one line inside. Power breaks. Respect rebuilds. No signature. But she didn't need one. I folded the paper slowly. Justice didn't roar in my life. It didn't burn down houses or destroy futures. It came quietly, by remembering who I was. By choosing to walk away. By standing back up without asking permission. Dignity isn't returned by apologies. It's returned the moment you decide you deserve better. And that's what I learned. You don't have to fight loud to win big. Sometimes the strongest justice is silent. And sometimes the person you save is yourself. Subscribe for more family dramas. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from.